Hi there, I'm the CRM Ninja, and on today's episode of the Oops Factor, I have Al Eardley. Welcome to the show, Al.
Hey, how you doing, anyway? I'm yeah, happy to be here.
Great. I'm doing pretty well, apart from this arrow, which is sort of going through my head. But, apart from that, day's going well.
Yeah, interesting choice of pictures. And can't imagine why that would be there.
Well, I understand you have an affinity with Robin Hood, and Sheffield Green didn't look so good, the picture that I found. So I thought, let's find something similar.
Yes, I do. I do like to get out into the woods and do some archery whenever I can. It's a great way to unwind and to relax.
How
So
did you
yeah.
get into archery?
Um, well, so my daughter had seen Brave when she was quite small, and
Okay.
so she was quite interested in having a go, and I quite thought that would be quite good. So around the time of the 2012 Olympics, she had a go, but at that time she was too young to actually join a club.
Okay.
So a couple of years later, we found a club which is doing. It's ironically called field archery, although it's in the woods. And so she joined. We all joined as a family. So it's a great way to get out and just sort of enjoy a bit of time without electronics, a bit of time together, nice time to chat and get
Ah,
out into nature.
so from the sound of that, you don't have any fancy gizmos or gadgets that you use?
No, so I use what's called an American flat bow, which is it's wood. So I don't have a compound or any sights or anything like that. Whereas my daughter actually does have a compound bow, but she doesn't use any sights or anything on it. So it's quite a strange combination that she shoots.
Okay.
So yeah, it's all well, it's theoretically supposed to be skill, but it does come down to luck.
And the wind, I understand as well.
Yeah, the winds. So what we do with our archery is it's kind of like doing a round of golf. So it's 14 different targets, but they're all different sizes and different
Okay.
distances. And sometimes you have to kind of shoot around the trees and sort of, you kind of lean either side of trees to hit the target and sort of going up elevated and so it's quite interesting. But because we're in the woods, thankfully the wind has less of a
That is
factor.
true. Yes. And
Um,
how much of a pull does your bow have?
So mine is 45 pounds, which
Okay.
is it's not a massive amount, but for the distances that I shoot, it doesn't need to be. So it's quite comfortable. I don't have to strain too much.
That is important. You wouldn't want to strain all the way out there in the woods.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. Makes it more relaxing if you're not straining.
That is true. So I remember reading some years back a fact that I think it was American sharpshooters or English side trained using bow and arrows on squirrels to get the accuracy. Have you ever heard of this?
I haven't heard of that, but I can vouch for the fact that squirrels are quite hard to hit. And yeah, funny story. In the woods, tons of squirrels. They're all over the place, and more often than not, when they run, they distract you, but you very rarely hit them. And so, in 9 years of shooting, almost never hit a squirrel. And then my daughter, actually, a couple of months ago, she shot an arrow, missed the target. It went over the boss, and we are kind of like, okay, well, that happens. And so you go in behind the boss looking for the arrow, and there's leaves and twigs and stuff, and so they can be quite hard to find. So sometimes you're kind of digging around and you just see a flight, and that's how you identify it.
Right.
This time she kind of wandered off and she went, I found my arrow. It's in a squirrel. And she had actually managed to, the squirrel was completely dead. Had a bit of a shocked look on its face. It was kind of like, yeah, okay, that's unfortunate for the squirrel, but yeah, that's the only squirrel adventure that we've had with the bows and arrows.
Hopefully you haven't
I
hit
think
anything else living.
no, no, not so far as we know. No people or anything like that.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. One hears of not archery, but more, American hunters who manage to shoot each other up in shooting season, which is why they wear these ridiculously orange jackets, apparently.
Yeah. So yeah, we have some quite strict rules in quite a confined space that means that we're generally quite safe. I've not heard of any incidents that have caused any injuries to people.
That is relief. And archery is very fun. I tried it a couple of years ago, but then other circumstances prevented me from continuing at the time. But it was definitely very fun. And as you say, very, very relaxing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice because it gets you into a state of focus on something else so that nothing else creeps in, but it's not like you're really concentrating. It's just sort of bouts of concentration when you're shooting at different targets. So it's a really nice, relaxing sport.
Brilliant. Well, viewers, you should take this up possibly if you want to find a new and novel way to relax.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So moving from archery to the oops factor, what do you have to share with us today?
So I was thinking of lots of different things, and I did think about a kind of an anti-pattern to share, but actually I think one of the things, so as we were talking before coming on air, I've been back in the MTC, in the Microsoft Technology Center where I work, doing demos and having clients, and the peril of updates and technology and demos. You should always be prepared for that, shouldn't you? And I had a great one on, what was it, Tuesday, when Windows 11 rolled out, and I had clients in, and we were using Hub 2s, and we were, using it for design thinking. So it was crucial that they were all working because we wanted to actually get the client actually using them and experiencing them. Now,
it's always great to have people get hands-on with it. They get more involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And this was, it's a key part of it. Get your hands on. You're more likely to buy this stuff if you've actually played with it and you can see the benefits of it. So
that's of course very important when the technology is as expensive as some of those pieces of guitar, right?
I don't worry about the price anymore. That's a nice part of moving to Microsoft. Don't worry about that. So we roll some of these hubs in. They're on the battery, so it's nice. They start using them, and the first one blue screens. It's like, oh, what? We've not seen that happen before. And then the one right next to it blue screens as well. And it's kind of like, oh wow. So we actually managed to find one particular combination of actions on a particular application that consistently blue screened a hub. It's kind of like, okay.
So being good at these things, of course, you immediately filed a bug report, right?
Oh, absolutely. We've actually reported it to the product group already. Yeah, but I guess the oops part of it is kind of, you've always got to be ready for these things that, even if you've used these and we've used them a lot before, we just never came across this single combination of activities. And as soon as we get clients doing it, that's what happens. That somebody is going to find that one combination of factors that are going to make something blue screen. So always being able to actually go, what's going to happen now if everything fails? So luckily we got them all back up, but I did have a box of Post-it notes and pens just in case, so we could have reverted back to the old school way of doing things. So
Boy Scout
always have a backup plan.
Boy Scout motto is always be prepared.
Yeah.
Always have a plan B, and some people have a plan C and a plan D and a plan E as well.
I've come across those as well, yes. But always have plan B in case everything fails that you think you're going to be using.
But truthfully, this is also, I guess, one of the challenges that we can have and we experience along the way in terms of cloud systems. Because unlike, an application which you install and you possibly can control the update to it or not, if it needs an update, you can just take it offline and it doesn't get updated. In a cloud system, stuff can change one moment to the next. And I know when I've given training sessions to students as a Microsoft certified trainer, and you're looking through the official training material and you're presenting it, and they say, but the interface doesn't look like that. And you can't change the interface because it's been updated and the material hasn't yet been updated around it.
I see. And as you know, presenting in the community as well, you're doing demos for things. You check it the night before, it all works perfectly, doesn't it? You
It's wonderful
start
when it works
off,
perfectly when you do it by yourself at your own desk.
yeah, and you've got to hope that people believe that it was working, because as soon as you have an audience, you know that, oh, that button that you were going to click has moved somewhere else, and it's like, oh, but where is it? Or there's a new option, and you kind of go, I can't help myself, I'm going to click it and see what it does. It's like, that's not what I was expecting. So yeah, it is the peril of cloud technology at times, that you will get unexpected changes.
Indeed,
And
that is so.
And I guess you always have to be prepared for those, don't you?
Well,
You can't roll back from them.
Obviously you can't roll back from cloud updates, because you can't just roll back cloud. But I think sometimes some people might wish to. A recent outage event, for instance, which took that large swaths of social media across the globe. But one thing when I started training was, there's somebody who was an experienced trainer and done it for years, said to me, you need to work on your face of never be surprised. It's like, yes, in your mind, you're thinking, I wonder what this button is. Yeah. And to your students, it looks like you've done this 1,000 times before. You're expecting this behavior to happen. You're expecting the results.
And I think the other part of that is never draw attention to what's not working. If something doesn't work the way you expect it to, always try not to draw attention to that particular element. Because if you go, oh, well, that's not supposed to happen, you're kind of broadcasting that something's not right, as opposed to, oh, and so as you can see, we can click over here and we can move on. And, so there is an art to, not shouting that something's not working, which I have to say I'm really bad at in demos. I always go, oh, well, that's not right. Oh, well, we'll just move on.
So it's interesting you say that. And the reason is, in a system that I was training a bit of a while back, we wanted to show users what happened when something didn't work within the system, so they knew that essentially it was like a bug experience, so they could report it. So we deliberately created part of the system that when they did something in a specific order, it would crash.
Right. Okay.
And the reason for that is the users weren't very technologically capable, and they wouldn't have known otherwise. Otherwise, they would have reported either everything as a bug or nothing as a bug. So we wanted to show them an example of when something doesn't go right. So we had, I think, a screen that stopped loading halfway through and flashed an error message up, and we deliberately got them to drive it through.
Okay, that's an interesting. I guess you need to know what an error is and what to do with those errors.
Yes.
How to report them and how panicked to be, as opposed to, it's not a showstopper. It's not breaking everything.
Well, I always
still work.
I don't know about you. I always find it amusing when being sent an email by whoever it is, whether it's a client in a professional capacity or personal, and says, the system's not working, or we can't do what we need to do. And that's all it says. It's a 1 or 2 liner. And you're thinking, maybe it'll be helpful to know what you're actually trying to do. Can you tell me screenshots? Can you tell me what you're up to? So,
that's I've worked with developers long enough to kind of think, you need to teach them as well. You need to be auditing some things so that you can actually go in and diagnose things when you do get those user comments of, well, it just broke. I couldn't complete this. How much can you get from the back end, as opposed to actually having to go back and, we all know trying to recreate things is not necessarily the easiest process in the world.
Many years back, my grandfather had a laptop. I think I may have told the story before on the show, that if I did, it was a while back. My grandfather had a laptop that would turn off when my grandmother entered the room. And I, being the IT person in the family, was got out to diagnose it. I couldn't replicate it. At all. Nobody could. We tried stepping in the room, stepping out the room. It just didn't happen. Yep. Can you guess what the reason for it was?
No, not heard this one.
So it had a faulty cable, and the outlet for the plug was right next to the door. And when my grandmother would come in the room, she would come in a certain way and lean on the door frame. And it being an older dwelling, what would happen was there would be some stress done, and it would actually cause the outlet to move slightly, and the
Right.
plug would go, and the wire would essentially lose connection.
Wow. That's
Yes.
yeah. It's recreating it, isn't it? That is the secret to any diagnosis of cause.
But the way that I found out
Otherwise,
was I got my grandmother to walk in the room multiple times and watched exactly what she did, and sort of
yeah,
narrowed the focus down for it.
yeah, yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. That is good.
It was
Yeah,
quite fun.
finding causes. I've got some horror stories about issues that have taken ages to diagnose, but yeah, that was always the hardest part. Solving them isn't a problem when you know what causes them.
What would you say would be the biggest issue that you had to diagnose? At the end of it, you went, if only I had known this, it would have taken me 2 minutes instead of 20 hours.
Ooh, it tends to be where you trust the configuration is correct and is what people tell you. So I remember one that was an intermittent issue, and it came down to the way they configured multiple Active Directory boxes.
Oof.
And one had an LDAP port open and one didn't. And because of the way they'd configured things as a round robin going between Active Directory boxes to actually authenticate, sometimes it wouldn't authenticate, and we couldn't tell. And we said, is everything configured the same way on every machine? Absolutely, yes, it's all. No, it wasn't. So it was, yeah. I think that's quite a common one, actually. Trusting what you're told rather than actually validating it. And sometimes the validation takes a long time, but
that is true.
Trusting what you're told is probably the biggest thing that I always am very distrustful of whatever I'm told. It's always go and validate it and make sure.
That is true, because we all slip up at times, which is partially what the show's about.
Yeah, it's human, isn't it? Unless you're scripting it and you've repeatedly tested it, and yeah, I mean, this was back in the days when you wouldn't be scripting it; you'd be going in and following a guide.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, everybody is human, aren't they?
Indeed, they are. Indeed, they are. Well, Al, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing all these wonderful stories.
A pleasure. I'll look forward to seeing you in person at an event soon.
I am deeply looking forward to that as well. Viewers, we hope that you've enjoyed this episode and learned several things from it, including that we all like going to in-person user events. Feel free to check out the rest of the Oops Factor playlist, subscribe to the channel, and take a look at the blog. And if you would like to come on the show, hit the link in the description below, put in your details, and I'd love to have you on. But above all, have a great day.